This Pitch Breakfast video is brought to you by Spangler and Agins, attorneys for Charlotte's startup community.
Well, right off the bat, I just want to echo the happy birthday to Pitch Breakfast and thank the organizers, our sponsors, and the panelists, all who've contributed to this. It's a lot of fun. I love being here. So I'm going to start by asking, perhaps for a show of hands, how many of you in the last 5 years have attended an industry trade show or a large conference kind of event? Yeah, quite a large percentage of you. And maybe your experience is a little bit like mine. I mean, I've gone to these events to meet new people, form new relationships with people that share an interest in a business need, maybe find a customer, a client, a partner, an expert in a particular area. We call it networking. And it's the number one reason why people go to these events, whether it's in Vegas or not. And we want to form new relationships with people that move us forward. So large conferences nowadays will often provide an app, and they'll have in it an attendance list that might have 400 or 4,000 or heaven forbid 40,000 attendees. And if you're trying to meet the right people from among the many that are there, that can be daunting to surf through all of the attendees trying to find the right people. So you might attend breakout sessions that match your interest and hope to bump into the right people. Or you might go to the networking event. And if it's Vegas, you might get lucky and you might meet the right people. But whether it's Vegas or not, there are barriers to building a great network. Finding the right people involves some luck. And it poses the risk of being stuck in that going nowhere awkward conversation or with somebody who's trying to sell you something you're not interested in. We all know that feeling. And profile systems that are built into conference-based apps engender very little engagement. They get deleted on the day after the conference, and so they don't provide much benefit. Technology can sometimes work to our disadvantage because it opens this sea of opportunities for searching and browsing and trying to find out who are the right people to meet. It's all pretty exhausting. What Cerca wants to do is change that. And Cerca is a powerful mobile application and a growing community of members who build precision profiles around their professional and personal interests. Cerca's algorithms then help to match people together, people that will be high-value contacts for you. And let me say a word about the power of recommendations. Some recent research by McKinsey revealed that 30% of Amazon purchases are the result of Amazon's recommendations. And 75% of the movies that Netflix members watch are the result of Netflix recommendations. People are tired of searching and browsing. They want intelligent recommendations, and that's what Cerca is focused on producing. It functions like your personal networking assistant. It knows everything about you and does the heavy lifting of finding the people that would be high-value connections. What's unique about Cerca is also what's powerful about Cerca. Not only intelligent recommendations, but it saves me energy. Saves me the effort of all of that and actually holds my information confidential. So I have the privacy of not being stalked by someone or approached, and I don't have to build a profile, waste time trying to make a profile look good, or serve through others' profiles. And lastly, it has lasting usefulness across events. Now, our deployment strategy is healthcare conferences, which is near and dear to my heart and my background. It also gives us the opportunity to put it into the hands of a lot of people and make the value proposition quite real quickly by orchestrating collisions that wouldn't otherwise have occurred. In fact, the value proposition of Cerca is to the conference producer. They're the buyer, and in doing so, they give the gift to their attendees of the best networking experience ever. They receive for themselves de-identified data on the interests of all their attendees that let them plan their programs and events and attract the right vendors and sponsors. We're building a team with expertise in healthcare and conferences, as well as marketing and technology, and we like local. We like Charlotte, and we like dual boot partners, and we're partnering with dual boot to continue building the technology that will put this product live in the market this summer. We're raising a convertible note round of $400,000 as a target. 75% of that will be invested in the core technology and some into sales and development. So I'd say to close, who wants to join with us in revolutionizing how we sift through the masses and find the right people? Because Cerca is the modern way to find people who move you forward. Thank you very much. Right on time.
Okay, panelists, what do you think?
Nailed the dive on the timing.
Right on this. Perfect.
Drop the mic.
First time I've ever seen that. Who wants to go first?
I'll go. Yeah, that was a great presentation, Dave.
Thanks.
I was wondering when the healthcare piece. I know Dave is a healthcare professional, so when I saw the list last night, I was like, okay, so where now you tied it in. So thank you for that. And it's the first time I've seen emoji slides. So very nice. Look, I think it's an interesting technology. There seems to be a lot of technologies in and around this space. I mean, obviously you can start with LinkedIn, but then like a data provider is Source Scrub that really focuses in on the conferences and that type of thing. So I think there's a great partnership channel that you could kind of go to market with and sell the technology. So just think about that, because there's a lot of different companies kind of hanging around the hoop on this. The other thing on the matching algorithm, you might want to look into filing a provisional patent just to protect the IP. It seems like this could be ripe for machine learning too. And look, I'm the first person to say don't put machine learning in your presentation because it's a buzzword and I think it discredits you. But I actually think that there's an opportunity there for it. But think about, with DealCloud, we had a matching algorithm in our original platform, and we did file a patent for that, and so just something to think about. But yeah, I think it's an interesting platform, and certainly there's a lot of partnership opportunities to really drive the sales of the. Now, who's paying for it? That's one thing.
The conference producer.
The conference producer.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is a B2B play.
That's right.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Yeah, on that note, I would be more specific about that. I mean, that was my guess as well, but I think that would be important. I'll just kind of touch on maybe some more of the tactical parts of the presentation or the pitch. And I always say this up front in my comments. This is like in light of the 5-minute format, which is either you're sitting at a conference with investor types, like a VC type of thing, right? Or you're in an elevator, or you're walking down the street and someone's like, I got 5 minutes, right? I liked the Vegas shot. I mean, it was kind of like, boom, now I'm here, I'm at the conference. I think we've all, or a lot of us have been to Vegas. I personally hate the experience, but and then it kind of, things slow down a little bit. So I think you could probably cut out 80%, and maybe it was mostly the verbal discourse you were bringing to, and I could see you get in your comfort zone, but you spent a lot of time to get to this point of like, this is exhausting. And I was kind of like, okay, like I get what you're saying, but I think what you're saying from a business point of view, if I'm going to think like a business, user, is it's inefficient, right? Yeah. You're kind of going to these conferences, and yes, it's exhausting because you probably stayed up till 2 a.m. going out with some rep or something like that and taking out for drinks, but it's really inefficient. And I think you can make that point quicker. And I did like how you wrapped on this is kind of just a smarter, automated, those are my words, version of a personal networking assistant. Like that actually might capture the distracted, investor mind, right? So if you had your 5 minutes with me, it would be like, well, wait a minute, like tell me more about that. Okay. So I think you could probably take that first 80% of your time spent and like crunch it into maybe a minute and just nail like, this is an inefficient process. These conferences want to monetize, the user base, and we have a way to do that. And oh, by the way, it's gonna make the user more engaged. And then I think you can spend more time in your 5-minute pitch showing what engagement looks like, even if it's just ideas, right? Here's what that looks like. That gets me into a product. You're still at kind of an abstracted idea, right? So would I be interested in a $400,000 round here on an abstracted idea? Probably not as much as if you nailed the dive on here's a product, here's how people are going to use it. So that's just my feedback on like the 5-minute format to kind of get me to want to take your card, call you back, and follow up for an hour meeting, and then talk about the round that you're trying to raise. Yeah.
Thank you.
So Dave, I've been doing this for all 6 years, by the way, and I don't think I've ever seen anybody actually end right as the alarm was going off. So that was impressive. On the comments Mark was just making, I want to reinforce that, right? One of the big lessons in doing these 5-minute versions, and I know it's a little bit artificial and it's hard to do, and you did nail the timing, but less is more. Right, and what Mark was saying, an investor, again, typically they're somewhat ADD, right? So they're really looking for, okay, what's the hook? What's connected me here? And the Vegas slide was interesting because it got me interesting, and my mind was going, yeah, we've all been to these kind of conferences. It's a pain in the ass to connect to, especially when they're really big, right? You've got 10,000 people, you can't sort through all that. So you had me going, but then you left that and you jumped into more social networking, and I honestly, my mind went, oh, well, this is really for trade shows too. Oh no, this is some broader nearby, and my mind, my ADDness kind of wandered me off down another path, and I was like, well, then you're competing with LinkedIn, and who remembers the company that competed with LinkedIn back in the day? Anybody? I was actually on their advisory board a very long time ago, and it tells you something that nobody remembers the name, right? So my mind went to, well, wait a minute, they're competing in a very big market, and that's tough. So. The way I think you could have fixed that, instead of spending quite as much time kind of doing the background, come up with something that really helps center the investor or your audience there. And my very quick and dirty is we're Match.com for trade shows, right? Because if you say that, then you've got my attention. I'm focused, as much as I can be focused, and I at least now know the space that you're playing in. The other piece, when you get to competition, right? Where are you playing? This is, we've all been to trade shows. They all have apps of various sorts. Most of them aren't very good. I'll admit that, by the way. But where are you playing? So if you did sort of a typical Gartner Magic Quadrant, I find you can do that with one slide, and it's highly effective. Here's how I'm positioning the company, and here's how we're different. And we're different because we are doing intelligent recommendations, right? We're figuring out who's nearby, and that would have really helped me hone in. And then finally, on your use of funds, right? You said that I would like to have seen a little bit more on the use of funds, just saying half of it's going for development and half it's going here. I'd like to know not only where is it going, but what milestones does that help me achieve, right? So as an investor, they're going to sit there and say, okay, I'm putting in 400K. What's that actually going to buy me? How far down the path is that actually going to push me? And then one final point, and I'm a big believer in this, most investors, when they're looking at a startup company, it's all about the team, right? It's the 3 things that are important: team, team, and team. And that I would have liked to have seen you spend a little more time on your team, because as I glanced very quickly at the slide, it looked like there was some interesting background there, including yours.
Thank you.
Let me just make one more, let me pile on to one more point that just kind of came to mind when Dan was talking. It could be in the 5-minute format, and I think it should definitely be in the bigger format, whatever that looks like, 30, 60, 90, 120 minutes. Walk us through an example. Like literally talk about like when I was in the healthcare industry and I was at a trade show, and kind of show side by side. Case A is the old school method where you had to spend 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours to get 23 business cards stuck in your briefcase, running to the airport, right? Like chaos, inefficiency, frustration, exhaustion, versus, okay, like I show up at the conference already seeing the top 30 people that the algo thinks I should talk to, or something like that, right? That just like boom, now I'm in.
Yeah. Okay.
That should be your first 3 minutes, I think. You can keep the Vegas picture because I think that kind of sets the tone. But yeah, that's what I really want to say. Anyway.
Audience?
Audience, who has questions? Yeah, Garth.
I've got a question. Sorry, usually I'm a panelist, so I felt like I didn't talk. I go to tons of conferences per year, and I've used every app. And what I wanted to know is two problems. One is, how does the data get in there? Because the problem I have with these apps is like nobody opts in, so you've got a bunch of blank profiles, or so there's that problem that I just didn't see, how you might be different. And the other one is, you're like, okay, you can get your information out there, or you gotta give to get. You're like, you don't want to be stopped by people, but you want to stop people, essentially. So how do you go with that? One layer down, how do you attack that problem?
Well, what really is the fundamental problem with the networking feature built into conference apps is that brevity of existence. So since they're going to delete it on Monday, no one will put anything into their profile. You're often invited to do so. And like I'm going to a conference in 2 weeks, and we'll calculate the day before the conference how many people have built out their profile. It'll be less than 10%. And some of those have been built out by the organizer because they're the speakers. So this doesn't serve you very well. And the only way people will engage is if this thing has some permanence. And I can use it at that event, and that event, and that event. Then I'll begin to build more specificity to my interests into the profile, because it will last from time to
So
time.
you build a Cerca profile that goes.
That's
with
right.
every-
You build a Cerca profile, and Cerca becomes the tool. Because people don't just network at an event, they network across their career. So we figure it's a tool that can serve people between events, at Starbucks, at the airport, wherever you may go. Eventually it'll have location enablement, so it can tell you when a high-value contact may be nearby.
Got time for one more from the audience.
Have you explored using external data such as LinkedIn or other B2B data providers to automatically fill the profile data instead of relying upon the user to fill that data?
That's right, we will do that. Surprisingly, LinkedIn's depth of information on an individual is very light. It has your work and educational history, nothing forward-looking about what your goals and your objectives are going forward. So we will create that feature where we can quickly pull in what is in LinkedIn and eventually get users permission to observe what they like and follow on Twitter or something like that as a way of understanding their interests. But it will require some investment by the individual to sort of populate that more specifically. Great question.
All right.
Thank you very much.